All right, welcome back. For this part of our series, we're swapping our programmer hats for detective hats. We're stepping away from the terminal and into the courtroom, because today it's all about the tricky intersection of cybersecurity, law, and ethics. And with AI in the mix for both the good guys and the bad guys, things are getting more complicated than ever. Okay, let's open the case file.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. Every single system you protect, every tool you build, it all exists inside a legal framework. And one wrong move, one little test you didn't get permission for, and suddenly you go from being the hero to the prime suspect.
So, let's work a case together. A huge online retailer just got hit. Millions of customer records are out in the wild. And yeah, that includes your data. We're the forensic auditors on the scene, and it's our job to figure out what happened, how it happened, and who's responsible. The clock is ticking.
Okay, first things first, we need to properly assess the crime scene. Before we touch a single piece of data, we have to identify and categorize what we're even dealing with. This isn't just about the tech, it's about putting a legal name to the crime itself.
And when we say cybercrime, what do we actually mean? Well, the legal definition is incredibly broad. It could be anything from a simple phishing scam to a full-blown state-sponsored attack. If a computer or a network was involved, it falls under this massive umbrella. And for our retail breach, that puts it squarely in our territory.
So, to make sense of the chaos, investigators usually break it down into three main buckets, based entirely on the target. As you can see, we're looking at crimes targeting individuals, organizations, or entire governments. Figuring out which bucket this falls into is always step one.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. A phishing scam that tricks your grandma out of her banking info, that's a crime against an individual. An attack that takes down a major government website, that's against the government. In our case, stealing a mountain of credit card data from a store fits right here as a crime against an organization.
All right, we've defined the crime. Now comes the part everyone thinks they know from TV, following the evidence. But here's the thing, in the digital world, how you collect that evidence is every bit as important as what you find. The rules of engagement are incredibly strict.
And listen, if you only remember one thing from this entire discussion, make it this. You absolutely must have clear, written authorization before you touch anything. Without that piece of paper, your penetration test isn't ethical hacking, it's just hacking. It is the bright red line between being a security pro and being a criminal. Period.
And this is why that permission slip is so critical. You could find the digital smoking gun, the absolute key to the whole case. But if you didn't follow the proper legal steps to get it, a judge will rule it inadmissible. It's like it never even existed. Your whole case could just evaporate.
This brings us to a concept that is, no joke, the bedrock of digital forensics, the chain of custody. Think of it like the evidence's official biography. It's a meticulous log that tracks every single person who handled a piece of evidence, proving it hasn't been tampered with in any way.
Just look at this sample log. Every action is recorded, who has the evidence, when they got it, and what they did with it. You can bet that any decent defense lawyer will scour this document, looking for a single gap, one undocumented handoff, because if they find one, they can argue the evidence is tainted. And just like that, it's thrown out.
Okay, now our investigation is about to get a lot more complicated. We're moving beyond the clear black and white rules of law and into the very, very gray world of ethics. This is where just knowing the rules isn't enough.
So let's do a quick scenario. You, yes you, discover a huge flaw in a major banking app, a flaw that could let attackers drain customer accounts. So what do? Do you go public to warn everyone, knowing you're also giving criminals a roadmap? Or do you quietly tell the bank and just hope they fix it?
Well, luckily for us, the industry has a playbook for this exact ethical dilemma. It's called responsible disclosure. First, you report the issue privately to the company. You give them a fair amount of time to patch the hole. Only after a fix is available do you consider going public. It's all about protecting people without arming the attackers.
Now, sometimes these ethical ideas get so important that they get written into law. The best example is probably the EU's GDPR. It basically forces companies to follow ethical principles, be transparent with data, get consent, only collect what you need, and for crying out loud, protect it.
And the consequences for screwing up are massive, but in very different ways. You break a law like GDPR and your company's looking at fines that can go into the millions, even billions. But in ethical apps, that might not cost money directly, but it can cost you something far more valuable, trust. And in this field, when your reputation is gone, you're done. So far, we've been acting like our case is a local affair, but cybercrime couldn't care less about borders. So what happens when we trace the attacker and find out they're halfway across the world? Well, the chase goes global.
Let's get back to our retail breach. After some digging, we traced the attack to a server in one country, but it's being controlled by a hacking group in another. Your local police department can't just send a squad car. This thing just blew up into a massive international investigation.
So, how in the world do you tackle a problem like that? It all boils down to global teamwork. Different countries have to work together, sharing intelligence on threats, cooperating to track the criminals' digital footprints, and coordinating their legal efforts so a case can actually be built.
And when it comes to that kind of cooperation, two big names always come up: Interpol and Europol. You can think of them as the hubs that connect all the different national police forces. Interpol is the global player, while Europol focuses specifically on the European Union. They make the global chase possible.
All right, our investigation into this retail breach is coming to an end. We've defined the crime scene, we've followed the evidence by the book, we've navigated the murky waters of ethics, and we've even chased our suspect across borders. It's time to file our report.
So, before we close this file, let's make sure you've got the key takeaways for your own notes. Responsible disclosure, that's your ethical compass. Chain of custody, that's your legal shield. And GDPR, that's the rulebook you simply have to play by. Get these down and you're already thinking like a pro.
And that leads us directly to our next investigation. We've just spent all this time learning how to secure a single company. But what about the systems that our entire society runs on? Next time, we are raising the stakes. We're talking critical infrastructure, the power grids, the water systems, the hospitals that we all depend on.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Securing one company is a huge challenge, for sure. But how do you take these same legal and ethical principles and apply them to protect an entire nation? The game is about to get a whole lot bigger. Make sure you're here for the next briefing. I'll see you then.